In this video, we're going to continue our discussion of composition and aggregation. If you see my previous video, you'll see that we have this company object, and inside the company object, there is this CEO object, which we've defined over here. So these are, again, fairly simple classes. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the toString implications, okay? So suppose here in our CEO class, we're just going to go ahead and create a simple toString. Okay, and in here we will just return name plus salary. Okay, so just a very simple toString for CEO. All right, and so for company, what we'll do is we'll also create a toString. All right, and so we'll say public string toString. Okay, and we'll return company name plus employees plus num employees plus CEO. And now in this case, what we'll do is we will use the toString method of the CEO class that we just defined, since we have this CEO object. So we'll just do CEO. I could just do CEO like this, and the compiler would be smart enough to know to call toString, but I'll be a little bit more explicit about it this time, just so that there's no question about what's going on. Okay, and so there we go. So that is our toString of company. Okay, so if I go ahead and compile CEO, all right, that compiles just fine. And if I compile company, that compiles just fine. So now if I go to my implementation class, now that I've set up this company, Facebook with 10,000 employees and Mark Zuckerberg, okay, I should be able to just do jOptionPane.show message dialog, and we'll do C. Okay, C being company. And I could put in, if I wasn't so lazy, I could put in C.toString like this, but it's not necessary. It's going to implicitly say, oh, because you're trying to use a string here, I'm going to be smart enough to call toString. So either way is fine. Okay, and you will see that if I compile and, oh, I need to import my jOptionPane. So let's do that. Okay, and you will see that, sure enough, it prints out company name Facebook, 10,000 employees, CEO, and it has the Mark Zuckerberg with the salary. Okay, so nothing particularly surprising about that. All right, now here's where we can get into problems. All right, so I'm going to comment this line out right here. So now let's suppose that we want to do, go ahead and do company C. C2 equals new company. Okay, and we will do C2.setName Apple. Okay, and we will do C2.setNumEmployees. I have no idea how many employees there are at Apple. We'll just say 30,000. Okay, and now I'm not going to bother to set the CEO because maybe I don't know who the CEO is. All right, so now I'm going to try and just do a jOptionPane .show message dialog null, comma C2. This time I'll be less lazy and I'll put in the toString. Okay, and so the question is, what will happen when I actually try and do this? Okay, well, if I compile it, you'll see that it compiles just fine. Okay, if I run it, look at this. I get this exception in thread, Java null pointer exception, and it's pointing me to company.toString line 24. So in here, I'm getting some kind of a null pointer exception. And the issue is that in my toString method, I am trying to call CEO.toString, okay? But I have not actually specified a CEO. So this CEO right here is null, okay? I never called set CEO to set it to anything. And so as a result, I have a company that has a blank CEO, and so it causes my toString method to crash. Okay, so that's obviously not desirable. All right, so what we would need to do, obviously, is, well, there are a couple of things that we could do. We could put in some kind of a defensive check here in toString, but probably what we want to do instead is we probably want to create a constructor, okay, so that rather than having to do this thing where I just create a blank company and then start filling in the attributes, let's actually create some constructors in these two objects so that we can deal with this situation. All right, so I'll start over here in CEO. I think what we'll do first is we'll just go ahead and put in and we'll accept string name double sal. Okay, and then we can do let's see, we can do this dot name equals name, and we can do salary equals sal. I can do this dot salary, obviously. Okay. All right, so now we've got a CEO constructor, so that's nice. All right, and now if we go over here to company, all right, let's go ahead and create a company constructor. So we'll do public company. In this case, let's just say all we care about is the name. So we'll do string n, okay? All right, so now what we want to do is we'll do name equals n, okay? Number of employees is going to be initialized to 0 by default, okay? So we don't really have to necessarily worry about that. But now the CEO is going to start out being null, okay? So maybe what we want to do in order to prevent these weird errors from happening, okay, maybe let's go ahead and have an empty argument constructor CEO. Well, actually, before we do that, what we could do is inside of this company, in this constructor here, what we could do is we could say, you know what, let's just go ahead and initialize the CEO. But we don't know who the CEO is yet necessarily, so let's just do unknown, and we'll make his salary 0. Okay? So this way, if I did this, all right, now what I have done is I've created a situation where as long as I use this constructor, then my CEO will get set to something, and then I won't have that null pointer exception that I encountered last time. Okay, so if I go ahead and compile this, all right, that compiles. So now I need to go make some changes in here. All right, and what I'll do is I'm gonna comment out all of this stuff here. Okay, so now this code right here with my C2 equals new company, so this is expecting an argument, so I'll go ahead and stick Apple in here. Okay, and now because I put Apple in here, I don't really need this line. I'll still set my number of employees, and now if I were to compile and run this, okay, what you'll see is now it says company name is Apple, 30,000 employees, and now the CEO has my CEO. So it doesn't just crash, it doesn't just throw that exception. It says, okay, my CEO is unknown with a salary of 0, okay? So that's one way I could do it. Another thing that I could do is I could go in here and I could actually well, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and create an empty argument constructor here for CEO. Okay. And in this case, I'm just going to set name equal to blank and salary equal to 0. Okay, so this is my empty argument CEO constructor. All right. And over here in company, I'm going to create an empty argument constructor, public company. Okay. And I'm going to do a similar thing in that I'm going to say, all right, the company name is just going to be blank. Okay. And the number of employees is going to be 0. I mean, it is by default, so I don't really necessarily have to even do this. And I'm just going to make the CEO a new CEO, and I'll use the empty argument constructor that I just made. Okay. So the nice thing is that I've now at least initialized all these variables so that when I try and use toString and stuff, I'm not going to have any failures. All right. So I can compile company. All right. That compiles just fine. All right. Let's go make sure that CEO, I think that one I already compiled. Okay. So now if I go over here to my implementation class, all right, I can, let me comment out all this stuff here. Okay. And now what we'll do here is we're just going to just do like this. We'll do company C3 equals new company, and I'm not going to put in anything. Okay. I'm just going to use those empty argument constructors, but the point of this is that now when I execute a toString, okay, because everything got set up, albeit to default values of just blank strings and stuff, when I do this, my program is at least not going to crash. Okay. And so if I compile this and run it, you will see that it prints out that the company name is blank, there's no employees, the CEO doesn't have a name, and his salary is 0. So it went through and it actually printed out something, and even though there aren't any values in there, I didn't have to like do all sorts of exception handling, and I didn't have to worry about my program crashing. Okay, so the main takeaway, all right, that you need from this is that in a situation where you have a composition or aggregation type of deal, where you have one object that has another object in there, your constructors should try to actually create an instance of that particular thing. Even if it's just sort of a default instance that doesn't have any values per se, at least it will prevent this from being a null pointer reference so that you don't run into problems later when you're doing things like toString, okay? And we'll see a similar thing in another video with the equals method, where this could be an issue. So this is just basically a best practice that when you have this kind of aggregation situation, your constructors should try to handle that other object type by initializing it to something.